You're listening to Chameleon Church, biblical antidotes for the modern man, with your host, Allan Aguirre.
Good morning.
Good morning. Look at see. So when one of us is actually speaking, we could do this little thingamajigger. I just never play around with this stuff. So make believe you're talking now, Kris. Go ahead and talk.
Good morning.
Hello.
Wonderful to see you today. Do you have to do it manual?
Yeah, I just don't know how to get you in the big picture now.
Interesting.
There we go. I just figured it out. So when Kris has something to say, we can showcase him, and when Lenny has something to say, we can showcase him, and vice versa. Look at that. Ain't that special?
That's
amazing.
All right, so we'll do it right here. Hey, Allan Aguirre, your host of your Chameleon Church show every Tuesday morning at 7:45 Mountain. I know it's the weird time. I adopted that time, and I never changed it. I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't. And it's been like this for a little bit over 5 years, and it seems to be working. I guess it gives a whole bunch of people to show up by 8 a.m., which means we probably shouldn't say anything until then, right? I'm trying to find our live feed here on the YouTube, and I'm not finding it. So yeah, hey, Allan Aguirre, I'm your host. I'm coming to you live and direct from the Wasatch Basin of northern Utah, where it's May in Utah, which means it's still not warm. It's still not warm. I mowed my yard yesterday, though. What do you think about that? And these are our co-hosts, Kris Rosentrater, Lenny Perata. What the heck, guys? What's going on?
Hey there.
What's new? What's shaking?
Good morning. Good morning.
What are we going to talk about today?
2 more weekends, and I will be there in Utah.
That's right.
You.
Oh, yeah. So the conference begins. The conference is next week. Man. Looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I think it's going to be good. Oh, man. I think it's going to be good.
It is going to be good.
We're going to be talking about hearing the voice of God. You ready for that, Kris? You got content? You bringing it?
I need to spend a little more time getting my head together around it, but
Yep.
I know God's going to speak to us.
Because we hear the voice of God, but he speaks in various ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's speaking loudly right now.
Yeah, I can hear it. Well, have we been this quiet this soon in a program? It's been like 6 minutes, and we're like sitting there going, So, I don't want to talk about the news because it's just.
It's there.
No, I think we all know that everything we could talk about, we're just like, oh man, do we go there?
I know, right? But it's like, it's just getting ridiculous, and you know what? We can only repeat the same thing over and over and over. Hey, look! Hey, look at how they're sabotaging this. Hey, look at how they're sabotaging that. Oh, hey, look how they're like, and it comes to a point where you go, okay, is anyone going to rise up and do something about this? Who's going to stop this from continuing? Right? It's unquestionable that there's treason being done from the highest places of our government against ourselves. I mean, we're being sabotaged from the inside out. Not the first time it's happened. This happens a lot in the history of man, and it never ends well. And I mean, I just wouldn't even know. I mean, I don't know how. I don't even know how you would
Sound-
stop it. I mean, well, that's what
sounds like
elections are for, Alan.
sounds like the book of Exodus or Isaiah or Jeremiah.
Yeah. So, and it's not like we can just ignore it and we just got to concentrate on God. Well, that's why I love that Lance Wallnauism. If you're in the chapel on the Titanic goes down, you go down with it. We know what's going to happen. We know what has to happen. We have to be moved out of the way so they can go after Israel, and then Jesus comes back. Oh, you know what we could talk about? Here's what's interesting. There's we always talk about how there's people of faith out there that just aren't really people of faith. You know, there's various ways it describes them in the New Testament. They're not of us. They were among us, but they're not actually one of us. They're imposters. They don't have the Spirit of God. They have the spirit of Antichrist. They're literally they're in the church to infiltrate the church from the inside out. Oh, hey, what a concept, right? Jude talks about them. Paul talks about, I mean, they're in every letter. Jesus warned us about them, have nothing to do with them, right? And they're in there. And some of them are pastors. Some of them sit next to you at church. Some of them are, they run around saying they're prophets and all that. They exist. They fully exist. And they literally have no desire to, do the right thing. They don't have the wherewithal to actually do the right thing. Then I was thinking about, so Messiah returns, second coming. He returns to deliver Israel from her physical mortal enemies. Christianity doesn't really understand that; they don't preach that. But that's why the second coming occurs. Jesus comes down to protect Israel from her enemies and to vindicate her and fight for her. And he comes back slaughtering kings. Then he sets up his kingdom for 1,000 years here on earth, and he binds Satan and throws him in the pit. Then we have the millennium reign. The Levitical priesthood is in full swing, sacrifices, feasts, the whole thing. Everything we do now, but with a Levitical priesthood order. And, according to Ezekiel, the last 2, 3, 4 chapters. So that's going on. And, he's reads the Minas. He comes and establishes himself as king or as ruler. Not everybody is into it. You have your sheep nations, your goat nations, sheep towns, goat towns, stuff of that sort. And then, before the end of the millennium reign, he releases Lucifer so that he can go and deceive those that were born during the millennium reign. Now, what the heck? Why would Jesus release Lucifer so that he can go and attempt to deceive those that were born in the millennium reign, those that were born without Lucifer on the earth? And then he's released so that he gives them a chance to deceive them. Before the end of the millennium reign, when God wraps it all up, new heaven, new earth, destroys the earth by fire.
There's going to be leftovers. There's going to be leftovers going into the millennium too. Lots, thousands.
Oh yeah.
And
what do you mean? What do you mean leftovers?
Go ahead and
discuss. There'll be a lot
that
of people that aren't going to die. They're going to be alive when that tribulation during the tribulation and going into the millennial reign of Messiah. Not everybody on the planet's going to die, and that means good or bad. It's not just the good ones that are left alive. Remember, he's coming back and he's going to judge the sheep nations and the goat nations. That doesn't mean he's going to wipe them out. It means they're going to have whatever for the 1,000 years. And then he says he releases Satan again out of the bottomless pit to deceive him, but it's going to be a quick turnaround for them. What it brings up to me is a complacency. I was thinking about this. Where in history have we been able to receive such content and information in an instant, within 10 seconds of it happening. And globally, you talk about the politics or anything else, everybody knows what's really going on, where before a lot of people were hidden from this stuff, and yet they're still complacent as ever. They're still complacent because we've become observers, and listeners, but not doers. And even with all the information that's happening, with everything that's going to be going down, people are going to still be like these sheep going, tell me more. And they're listening and they're watching, but they're not doing anything. And that's where you will see the rise of, it's like when you see the two witnesses, they're out there banging it. They're going crazy. They're telling it like it is. But you're going to see, I think, a whole company of people do that. They're not going to get a lot of traction because the media is not going to allow it to happen. But I think some of the greatest, if you want to call it revival or movement of God and his people, are going to happen during this time that's coming right now. And we're getting to hear it all at once, but man, look at the complacency that's out there. You tell people, and what Allan was talking about, you realize that half the believers on the planet are amillennialists. They think that Jesus coming back and the millennium is just a metaphor. They believe it's just going to happen through the church getting stronger and stronger, and that's going to be the ushering in finally of the kingdom. A lot of them are so wrapped into that false doctrine, it's unbelievable. Post-millennialism and amillennialism.
Well, it'll be exciting to see how these Muppets that have been doing the deconstruction. I've been deconstructing my faith. All these wacky, wonky left-wing Christian left, how they're going to fare, right? I mean, they're going to be their heads are going to spin just at the thought of what's going on. Kris, what are you smiling about over there?
You got
Yeah.
What is my
your impression of the Seattle hipster Christian or reformist or
my high-pitched Muppet voice?
Yeah, it's so right on. It's just so funny when you impersonate my Seattle friends.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's amazing how you phrases like left the faith or their hearts are far from me. And that's all I can think of. I was having this discussion with my daughter on a drive we took, and where people honor me with their lips, yet their hearts are far from me. And my encouragement to my daughter is like, you're going to see this. She's having some things with her friends. You're going to see this over and over. This doesn't go away. In fact, it probably gets worse as people get smarter. People go off to college. People, I discovered this author or this latest trend, whatever it is, and it's so quote simple in the fact that faith, it's about a relationship with the God of the universe. It's inviting the Holy Spirit to form every thought, every word, every minute of the day, every decision, and learning to. We were joking earlier about hearing the voice of the Lord, but hearing God. How do you hear God? You might not hear him literally. I don't think I've ever heard the voice of the Lord literally, like audibly, but it's discernment. It's culturing discernment. And when you start chasing the narrative of the world for whatever reason, it's easier. You want to be liked by certain people. I guess the end of the matter is it's all idolatry. You value someone else's opinion more than the Lord's. You want to be liked by someone or not disliked by a certain group of people more than you want to have the fear of the Lord, more than you want to be in the Lord's favor. And when that starts affecting your decisions, and you just see people drift, and it starts small. It starts with, like Lenny's saying, accepting a false narrative, accepting a theological position that is it could be a little squirrely, and before you know it, you have a cold heart, and then you're actually anti-God vocally, and it's sad. It's really sad. But I'm laughing at your levity of your Muppet impression. Unfortunately, it's correct.
Yeah.
Though I was looking up that what we're talking about is Revelation 20. Revelation 27. When the 1,000 years come to an end, Satan will be let out of his prison. He will go out to deceive the nations, Gog and Magog, in every corner of the earth. He will gather them together for battle, a mighty army as numberless as sand along the seashore. And I saw them as they went up on the broad plain of the earth and surrounded God's people. So it's like it's a national, international army to kill God's people and the beloved city. But fire from heaven. Wow, fire from heaven came down on the attacking armies and consumed them. Then the devil, who had deceived them, was thrown into the fiery lake of burning sulfur, joining the beast and the false prophet. There will be tormented day and night forever and ever. There was a line in here.
Isn't that amazing that there are full-on nations that are going to be able to be deceived after 1,000 years with Jesus on earth? That's how far removed they are from him. That's how far removed they are from what we're talking about. It's still going to be like that, you know? I'm telling you, I'm convinced that the millennium reign is not going to look too much different than what it looks like now.
No, it's going to be commerce. It's going to be everything is normal in a lot of ways. People don't realize that. They think it's going to be the Garden of Eden on earth. It's not.
No.
I mean, either you believe the Bible as true or you don't, is what it comes down to. But like this line, he deceived them, the devil who had deceived them.
Yeah.
So you either believe the devil is out there. Do you believe in heaven or hell? Do you believe in devil or Satan? Do you think this is real? And
If
you
they say no to any of it.
if you say yes or no, if you say no, well, can't help you. If you say yes, okay. Do you think he actually hates Jesus? Do you think he hates God? And do you think he deceives? No. Okay, can't help you. Yes. Okay. Do you think you're being deceived, or do you think you're following after some fabricated lie that you've either fabricated or are believing? And it's just, I mean, one of my favorite A.W. Tozer quotes: "The most important thing about anyone is what comes into their mind when they think about God." Because all this follows. Is there a God? Yes, no, maybe. All people are, and Romans tells us, all people are without excuse. You look to the heavens, you look to the mountains, you look to the sea, and you can ponder that and think there is something bigger than us out there. There's a plan that I didn't come up with. And you can logic yourself into the presence of God, and you can logic yourself out. Okay, I'm done talking. Someone else take over the big screen.
Lenny, you're up.
It's a fascinating subject. I think there's going to be, remember the dream I had of what my daughter was going to go through. I think she's going to be one of those that make it and says, "Oh shit," pardon language. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Wow. We're going to cancel you.
It's so early.
It's so early, but the reality is true. There's going to be a lot of people with that superlative.
That's when you cue the
crying
butt
out,
shots
going, they were
song.
right. And a lot of them are going to return. The millennium is.
All our people just left. There's like 5 people watching now, and they're all potty mouths.
No. I offended.
It's true, man. So think about okay, the 2 witnesses. I think that they'll be on the news and stuff because it says that when they're killed, the whole world like gives each other. It's like Christmas.
All right.
It's like Christmas to the whole world. They're all about it. They give each other gifts. They have parties. They're all excited.
Remember, they're the only two that are just going to be raising Cain that are going to come against this guy. Nobody else has the cojones to do it.
So you have those that are either going to be pushed away because they're not into that, or they're going to come to the Lord because they're into that. It's going to be, I think it'll be a very interesting hodgepodge because we still have the age of the Gentiles that still needs to wrap itself up. There's so much.
What will the Chameleon Church look like then? Think about that. Yikes.
No idea, man.
We'll be on here talking about these things. Oh.
Well, how many? All right, think about it. How many? The two witnesses. How many Christians are going to be saying, "Well, that's not God. God wouldn't do that. God wouldn't." I mean, they're literally going to not know that it's the two witnesses, and they're going to actually side against the two witnesses. A whole bunch of people of faith, because they do that now about everything else.
Remember why do you know why they're going after him? Because he stops the daily sacrifice and oblation. Hold on. Jesus fulfilled that. There's no need for sacrifice. They don't even understand that. How would you understand that if you didn't know Torah? That's the main reason when he prophesies by that cold altar, and the Antichrist calls that stuff out. Most of Christianity believes there is no more sacrifice for sins. This can't be of God. What about that one?
Well, they don't understand that not all sacrifices are for sin atonement.
Yeah.
That's what they get. That's where they get really confused because they've never been taught that there's a gazillion sacrifices out there that have nothing to do with sin atonement.
That's why, because they've been raised on Christianese. Oh, right. I'm not under the law. That's Christianese. Doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Sorry, I keep popping myself out. I'm just blowing my nose. I don't think everybody wants to hear it or see it. See, there's I've had to ask the Lord a long time ago, why did you tell me two things in 1986? Well, why did these two things start happening in 1986? You started revealing the Torah to me, and you told me to understand Genesis 6. What is the correlation? What do the two have to do with each other? And he very clearly explained, you can't enter the land of Canaan and take on the demonic strand of humanity, the Nephilim, without my Torah, because you will be sabotaged by the inhabitants. How else are we going to know to avoid the pitfalls of Israel in the desert without the Torah, if we're not towing that line? You know what I'm saying? If you're a Christian just towing the Jesus line, that's real nebulous because Christianity doesn't even know how to tell you how to tow that line. Pray, read the Bible, don't sin. That doesn't work. We know that doesn't work because we see how that doesn't work because we see the state of Christianity. It doesn't work. All this. I made fun of the deconstruction thing that the left is doing, but you don't do that when you have a foundation, a biblical foundation. Because these guys are real. They're like, I can't believe what fundamental Christianity is teaching or selling. I can't believe that. I can't believe that a God would. And so they're deconstructing their faith and taking it back to I don't know what. But it's incorrect. The end result is the majority of them are walking away from the faith, or they're creating their own version of the faith. That's not going to fly. That doesn't hold water. You can't put new wine in any of that. So they're the first that are going to be easily well, they already are, sideswiped because they're saying the orthodoxy isn't God's not like that. I'm deconstructing my faith, so now I'm more inclusive. I can start taking psychedelics as a worship leader. Gungor flat out said that publicly. I mean, it's just bad. So with this, and with the whole woke mentality, the woke mentality has entered the church. I mean, it's been in there for quite a long time. We've been pointing it out. No one's listening. How are we going to, without I believe that without the Torah as a foundation, which is what Matthew 5, 6, and 7 are all about, you will be tossed to and fro. You won't be building on rock, on a foundation that doesn't waver. You will be sifted. You will, be tossed to and fro. And if you don't, and right, because these same people didn't have the discernment to vote Trump based on what the prophets were saying, because they don't believe in prophets and they don't believe in the prophetic. And so they're going to vote Hillary. They're going to vote Barry. They're going to vote Joey. So if they don't have the discernment for that, they're not going to have the discernment for what's coming, and their chances are they'll side with they'll be reporting the people that have Anne Frank in their basement.
Ouch.
Well, because they got to toe the line. They got to toe the line. They got to toe the party line. They got to toe the narrative. Dude, you sent me that video yesterday. That's what we're talking about. We need to shame them because they aren't cooperating with the narrative. And they're MAGA wearing, they're MAGA loving, right-wing extremists, and they're a threat to democracy. That's what they said more than once.
Pretty much every network.
Yeah. So how is that going to play out as we go forward? Look, there they are again. They're not cooperating. They're not taking the mark. It's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego time. And you're literally going to have people telling you why it's okay. Well, I bowed down because this is literally an excuse I heard from many, many, many people of faith. Well, I didn't bow down to the idol because what if God wants me to go back there and minister to those people? If I don't bow down, I won't be allowed in. I won't be able to minister to them. I heard that. I can't even tell you how many times I heard that.
I can go fornicate because who knows, I might be able to reach that person with my witness.
That's Mormonism right there.
Oh, I've heard that one a couple times.
The Mormons actually do that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Missionary dating? I mean, I heard non-Mormon Christians, born-again Christians, explain away why they bowed down to the idol instead of standing firm like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's funny, right? I can never remember their Hebrew names. Those aren't their Hebrew names. Those are their Babylonian names.
Right.
I can never remember their Hebrew names. Isn't Meshach, Mishael? Something like that? But anyway, they're going to literally say, this is why we bowed down, so that, and they're going to have this great Christian excuse, and we're going, nope.
Yep. I have a pastor friend and it was like, we got to do this so that we can show love to our community.
Isn't that
If we
amazing?
don't do that, it doesn't show love, and it doesn't matter our opinion, as long this is the time to show love by bowing. Yeah.
I mean, we were told that it was the Christian thing to do. They said that it was a Christian thing to do. What kind of a Christian are you if you don't bow down, take the knee?
I heard get over it. Get over yourself. Get over it. Just bow.
Yeah. And my favorite was they literally went out. They literally said, "It's not about your freedom. Screw freedom." I love how people. I really my favorite. Here's my favorite when people not of faith tell you what your faith is about and what your faith is supposed to be like. Aren't you a Christian? Aren't you supposed to blah blah blah? And it's like, dude, you don't even like hamburgers. How could you possibly tell me how to cook a good hamburger? Anyway, why do I bring all this? Why are we talking about this? Well, because it's going to happen again. 2 witnesses are going to be out there doing their thing. There's going to be people of faith saying, foul. God wouldn't do that. That's not God. No, that's not what no. You can't add, you can't just throw revelation on that and move and go and move. No, these guys are crazy. Well, but there's fire coming out of their mouth. Is that normal? Isn't that one of the attributes? I bet you it won't look like that. It'll be totally what's the term? It'll be totally covert. I mean, it's not like they're going to walk out going, "We're the 2 witnesses." The guys that do that aren't the 2 witnesses. And I've met a lot of them. My point is that if we're not keeping God's Torah, we're not going to know the difference. If we're not hearing His voice, we're not going to know the difference. If we're not functioning at a so in October of 2019, live on this show, I had a prophetic word that I gave. I'm not going back to it to do this. Yeah, Allan. Yeah. No, I'm going back to it because of what it said. It said, look, if you're not already doing this, how are you going to ramp up in time? Because it's going to take discernment. What the heck is that?
What was that?
I don't know. I think it's Lenny. Lenny's got some little puppy over there that's wreaking havoc.
Yes.
If we don't have a high level of discernment, if we're not hearing God correctly, or knowing that I should be listening to this guy, not this guy, right? Moses, Korah, I need to be following Joshua, not, and then you can't turn around the next day and say, yesterday you killed God's people, because, right? I mean, it's so incriminating what they did the next day. Okay, that means, because Moses said, what if something happens that's never happened before and the earth opened up and swallow you and eats you and you go down to Sheol Hades alive? It's like the next day they're like, you killed God's people when you did that, because, Moses has that power. Moses can do that. It's so incriminating because if Moses does have that power and authority, you should be listening to him. And if he is killing people, it's because he's supposed to.
That passage is nuts because the same people come back the next day after that happened. And you're just like, dude.
They didn't learn anything. So after the three groups, the 3 guys and their families and all their belongings get sucked into the earth, then 250 Levites are killed by the sword. The next day, the people they're standing, it's like they come, Aaron, I've seen it and I've heard it. Moses and Aaron standing in front of the tent of meeting, and all the assembly of Israel comes against them. Yesterday you killed God's people. And they're like, oh, here we go again. Right? See how I didn't say it? Like Lenny?
Yeah.
Right? And then, and as soon as they do, man, Moses and Aaron know exactly what's going to happen. And what do, man? Moses falls on his face to intercede because a plague breaks out. A virus breaks out among the people. Aaron runs to go and do the atoning sacrifice to stop this. And the screams, the horror, the running around, the people, the franticness, the dust in the air, the smell of death. I mean, because it says Aaron walked between the living and the dead. And then as soon as he made the atonement sacrifice, the plague ended. But it's still going to take some time because there's still people dying. 14,000 lay dead because they didn't learn anything the day before. And they're still accusing Moses. Well, You're going to see that. You're going to see that with the two witnesses. You're killing God's people. I mean, there was this, they had these, Canaanite lives matter. You had the group of those when they entered the land. You had those people too. Not everybody was on board with, ridding the land of the Canaanites who weren't entirely human. Canaanite lives matter. I saw the posters, dude. They were standing out there on outside their tents with little Bobby and little Susie, with little Ari and little Tikva. I changed Bobby and Susie to Hebrew kids' names. And they're standing there going, take a knee, bow, take a knee to the Canaanites. They're like, no, these people are evil. It's going to happen again. And it's going to happen. The church is going to do this. I mean, this is what the church does. So the question is, how do we know the difference? How do we know what group to be a part of? Do we go with the people that believe the Canaanite lives matter? Do we go with the people that are like, wow, what Moses did yesterday was a little much, Moses. You overextend. It's called overreach, Moses. You went too far yesterday by killing Korah, his buddies, and then 200 plus Levites. You went past, you went over the line. You crossed the line. And then 14,000 of them lay dead because, well, they didn't have the discernment. They didn't have a discernment that this was God, not Moses. I mean, how do you believe that Moses had the power and authority to open up the earth? And if he can do that, you should be listening to him.
What's hard is people, and this is a hard one, they want to define God as love only.
I know, right?
And you know what? I'm glad we have a loving God, but the scripture is replete. He's holy. He's kadosh. And they don't understand the full meaning of what that means. And when they don't, and when they go from the premise that it's only God is love, and we have to look at that in his mercy, which is wonderful things, we make God in our own image. That's what Daniel saw. That's what terrified him. In my reading this morning in my devotion, what did I read? Phineas grabbed that stake and he rammed it through. Who was it? Cosby.
Cosby's the girl.
Yeah, Cosby the girl and Zimri. He shoved it through and he says, now to him I give my covenant of peace, of shalom, and he will have it forever.
His line.
They don't understand that he's holy, because right away everyone reverts to at the end, God is love. Yeah, he is. But you have to understand he's holy. And
he will not give up his glory.
Well, I want to move towards the God that's God is love. I want him to love me. I know he loves me. That's why it says he sent his son to die for me. And that was the fulfillment of Genesis to Revelation.
Well, the Christian left's already doing that.
Oh, I know.
And if you do that, and if you break it down to just that, then they won't know it's Jesus that's coming to execute judgment. He's coming to judge the living and the dead, your good works and your bad works.
That's what the transgender Christians use Galatians 2. They take it totally out of context. They pervert it. And all the issues of the whole sexual mandate, which goes back to Genesis 6, that whole issue, that's coming to the forefront. No wonder the main visual that we get is that whore riding the beast, the total sexual perversion riding the beast. And the church is oblivious to it. That's hearing the voice of God. You need to know his word. And you know what? It wasn't written for scholars. It's like the book of Revelation. I was looking at the latest FAI Revelation one yesterday. He says, let me tell you, if we're going to interpret this right, he's going to chapter 19, it gets back to time and date and not thematics. He says this, he goes, the book of Revelation was written for peasants. It was written for children to understand. It was not written for scholars. It was written in the most simple terms that when you whisper, if it whispers, you whisper. If it shouts, you shout. If you don't know what it's saying, shut up. Just makes it real simple. And we need to know the word of God. We need to know it that way because it wasn't written for scholars.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that phrase, give my glory. Looked it up. Isaiah 42:8. I am the Lord, that is my name. My glory I give to no other, nor my praise to carved idols. What you're saying, Lenny, about holiness, love and holiness. Isaiah 48, for my own sake, I do it. For how should my name be profaned? My glory I will not give to another. And I think that's that holiness thing you're talking about. Love, he loves. He is full, his faithfulness, righteousness establish his throne, his steadfast love, but he will not let his name be profaned, or he will have his glory one way or another. Every knee will bow. And that's the piece I think you're saying that people miss. They jump to love, but forget that he will not self-deny his glory. And there's a point where lack of fear of the Lord gets vetoed and you get stopped in your tracks.
That's right.
Yeah.
For some,
That's
it's
exactly
sooner
right.
than later, but it's eventually coming.
Yeah.
Love is what's done to us. That's why we like it so much. It's what's done to us. But he's beyond that. He says, that's why I don't share it with anyone else. You hit that right on the head, Kris.
Yeah. We'll be right back. Hey, be sure to like, subscribe, share, all that social media stuff. And through the month of May, we're having a five-pack special. I just posted the link. If you need to get some resources for your friends, your family, your whatever. I think they're all 5 books are like 20 or 25% off, something like that. Anyway, knock yourselves out. So not only, like we talked about last night on the Monday night gathering, not only do you need to be able to hear the voice of God, but you need to be able to discern that voice. Last night we talked about how God allowed one of his spirits to be a lying spirit in the mouths of 400 prophets who were prophesying unanimously, incorrectly, based on a lying spirit, and how there was only one guy, Micaiah, that actually understood what was going on, why they were all prophesying in unison. And the idea was God wanted Ahab, that's right, the Ahab, that guy, Jezebel's husband, to go to war against Syria so that he would die. And in order to get him to do that, a lying spirit from the throne room of God was put in, a lying spirit in the mouths of 400 prophets. And it was Jehoshaphat, that the king of Judah, that he should, is there anybody else we can listen to? Or is there anybody else that you got? Because, I mean, apparently he thought it was a little suspicious that 400 guys would be, in unison. And so they brought this other guy in who wasn't necessarily Ahab's favorite, because this guy actually would prophesy against Ahab and he hated him. And this guy told him, yeah, go. And he goes, tell me the truth. And he goes, all right, I'll tell you the truth. Because, it's like, I've had it with this guy. Ahab, the prophet was like, I've had it with this guy, Ahab. I'll tell you the truth. Here's what's really going on. And explains about this lying spirit. And that's why all your prophets are prophesying for you to go. Well, they put him in jail. And after they, but it is possible to discern when God is utilizing falsehood to get his way, to have his way. We talked about this a little bit with Trump. Remember with the Jerusalem Accord and putting Jerusalem as a capital and all that? Trump was actually doing things that have to happen in order for the end time scenario to occur. But Allan, I thought you were pro-Trump. I thought you said the prophets prophesied over Trump. Yeah, I did support that. I do believe the prophets prophesied a Trump presidency, but I also see that a lot of the things that he did that were pro-Israeli were in alignment with what has to be in alignment in order for Messiah to return. See, here's the thing: without an Ahab and a Jezebel, you don't have an Elisha. Without a false prophet, Antichrist, beast system, you don't have the return of Messiah.
Exactly.
I didn't make up the rules. I wasn't in the garden when Adam and Eve were seduced. I have nothing to do with any of that. I'm just telling you how it plays out. But Allan, and if you don't believe me, and if you don't agree with me, move on. Go to the next. I can send you links to a whole bunch of other channels that you would love, because they're just going to tickle your ears. We're not actually going to tell you anything of substance. And they'll, you can wear linen with them.
See, this is that falsehood that most of the Christian faith is under, is that if something happens and we're harmed in any way, that couldn't be God. That's why you have a pre-trib rapture.
Yeah.
That's why everybody wants to, that's the thought. That's the prevailing thought. Well, then what about the Christian that was eaten in the Roman Colosseum with the lions biting him, having lunch, and they went to the kingdom? It was, it was going to happen. And we as believers think that if anything bad happens to us, then it can't be God. That's
Or you have sin,
yeah. Yep.
which, you know, the only way you can come to that conclusion is by completely ignoring Jesus when he said, in this life, you'll have persecution.
That's right.
I mean, yeah, and he did say, but I've overcome the world. Yes, but he didn't say you're not going to, bad things happen to good people. It's called planet Earth. Here's the thing, man. If you're trying to rewrite the Bible, if you're trying to rewrite theology and doctrine, if you're trying to rewrite the scenario so that you can sleep at night, so that you feel good about yourself, so that for whatever reason, if you're trying to rewrite stuff or, to convince yourself, you can lie to yourself all day long, knock yourself out. But don't insult me and try to tell me that what you're thinking is right and what I'm thinking is wrong, especially when you have that type of ludicrous thing going on. What do you think? How do you think it's going to end for you? You're somehow you're gonna stand before God and convince him of your position. Well, this is why I did it. It's just startling to me. It's like, I'm not quite sure how they think it's going to play out, or they don't care, or they're so short-sightedness that all they see is this life and they really don't have a thought for the morrow. They actually don't. They're so convinced that I guess they're right, that there's no way they can't be wrong. So they have no need to think about course correcting, because my salvation is secure, because they probably believe in once saved, always saved, eternal salvation. I mean, it could be a number of reasons. Again, the point is you have to be able to hear the voice of God and then have the discernment to know that it is the voice of God, so that you can act upon it. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure how you're going to do this thing. I'm not quite sure how you think you're going to accomplish this thing. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah.
Kris, got a bunch of wisdom there storing up like a chipmunk?
Well, what you were talking about, you said you'll have trouble. That's is that a prophecy from Jesus? You'll have trouble in this world. Well, it is, but it's also, he knows the truth, so he knows what's coming. And just, search the word persecution or persecute in Scripture, and all like there's just the gospel of the false narrative of God is love. He does, be walk with him and everything's going to be coming up wonderful rose-colored glasses and pain avoidance. And I just don't think, if they hated me, they hate you because they hated me first. Lines like that. I couldn't find the passage where he's talking about, where he's saying, something like, you'll share my death, or you'll die like I died.
They'll drag you into the synagogue thinking they're doing God's will.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's just, he's telling that to his disciples.
Yeah.
We're not going to, some of us will not receive what he's warning his disciples about. I think that's ludicrous to think that we won't experience some sort of tribulation or persecution, Anyway, that's what I was thinking.
What was that? Religion is the opiate of the nation, of the what's that?
People.
Yeah. It's like, I live in a state that's ran by a cult. And these people truly, truly believe what they believe is true. And it's kind of hard to convince them otherwise. I mean, if you think about the various things that are out there to believe, people actually they exist because people believe it, or they're convinced of it, or somebody can. Cult leaders don't freak me out. I know why cult leaders are doing what they're doing. It's the people that follow them that freak me out. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you listening to them? Why are you doing that? It's weird, right? But Jesus made it very clear that he wasn't allowing the masses to understand what he was saying, so that they wouldn't repent, so that they wouldn't believe him, so that they wouldn't repent, so they wouldn't be healed.
That's a tough one. Yep.
I believe that still goes on today.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how great of a church you go to. It doesn't matter how great of a church, there are still going to be people that go, no. I mean, Judas walked with Jesus and was still skimming. And it said that he was a thief and a liar. Didn't they call him a liar? It said he was a thief. And he was disgruntled. And he walked with Jesus. Which goes to show that in the same way Adam and Eve, who weren't entirely human, who weren't human like you and I, they were immortals, walked with God in the garden in the cool of the day, and they were still able to be seduced and deceived. It goes to show that just how powerful our resolve is as humans, and how we will literally allow our humanity to stand between us and truth for whatever reason. Judas obviously felt things should be done a different way, especially with the money, because he was in charge of the money. He rebuked Jesus for allowing the prostitute to anoint his feet with oil when they could have sold that oil for a bunch of money. The way Judas thought, okay, think about this. I deal with a bunch of people that are I deal with a bunch of Christians, whether they're Torah observant or not is besides the point. I deal with a bunch of people of faith that are greatly disgruntled by their pastor, their denomination, their church, their youth leader, their parents, right? I'm just giving you the list of excuses I hear and I've heard for 40 years on why people do what they do, on why people believe what they believe, on why people stop believing what they used to believe, and why they've altered what they believe, and why they've changed whatever their trajectory, faith profile based on this stuff, right? And what people don't understand is, why are we going to listen to that guy who's anti-charismatic based on his sole reference experience? This was his experience. Okay, so he had a bad experience. Okay, so, when he went to a charismatic church and the youth pastor was being inappropriate with some of the whatever, right? Your sole reference experience isn't good enough or enough to discredit an entire thing. But we see that happen every day. Every single one of us knows someone that is no longer walking because of something stupid and lame like that. So, imagine if Judas hadn't killed himself. What his version of, well, yeah, I knew Jesus. I walked with Jesus. I was on the inn. I was one of the 12. That gives him credibility, right? I have credibility. What I have to say about walking with Jesus or who Jesus is is credible because I knew him, I walked with him, I was one of the 12. Imagine what his version would be like. And there would be people that would follow and believe him because, well, he was there, he would know. He was there, he would know, Alan.
Yeah, even if he changed the facts to fit the story.
Yep. Because he's going to leave out the parts about how he skimmed money, how he was a thief. He's going to leave out details that are going to magnify his being disgruntled, his being a traitor, his, all that stuff. He's going to make himself look good and Jesus look bad. He's going to make himself look good. Yeah, Jesus had his favorites. Peter and John and James.
It wasn't fair.
I wasn't asked to join them on the Mount of Transfiguration. I'm the one that these guys were fishermen. I was a businessman. Why? You see what I'm saying? These are exactly the stories I hear all the time for years, for decades.
Yeah, I was more qualified to this than this Paul guy. This Paul guy wasn't around. That was like, oh yeah, man, that's an interesting. I never thought about that.
I think about it all the time. Judas's version of walking with Jesus would have been twisted and perverted to make him look bad and everybody else look good. Make him look good and everybody else look bad.
And Jesus is dead. Jesus isn't here. He's not around to defend himself or correct me.
See, if he was really all that, he wouldn't have died. He wouldn't have allowed himself to die. See what I'm saying? We hear those stories all the time from people. All right. A couple of years ago, I was being discredited by a really pretty internet popular Torah community group that had, I don't know, as if I wormed my way into their group, because that's not how it happened. But anyway, they were accusing me of being a new apostolic reformation, which they think is like an Illuminati cult or something. It's freaking idiots. And they were constantly trying to discredit me for my stance on Charismatica because of one guy in their little organization. Yeah, I grew up Pentecostal. I grew up in Charismatic. I saw it. Same thing. Okay, so just because your reference experience says you were in a charismatic church and it was no good and it was fake and it was, they did everything wrong to discredit Charismatica, right? Doesn't make it so, because how do we know that your church was even doing it right? I don't, because I didn't go to that church. How do we know that? There's a whole list of things. Same thing, Judas. How do we know just because Judas walked with Jesus? That's pretty convincing. I was one of the 12. He's going to have a different perspective than Peter and John and James and Luke. But that doesn't make it so, see? Because Judas is broken. He's got issues. But there's more Judases out there trying to convince us how things should be based on their reference experience than there are non-Judases out there. Simply because of the numbers and the amount of time that has passed. There's more right? The majority of pastors and seminary students, seminary teachers that are out there, they're 1 talent guys. They're not 5 talent. They're not 2 talent. They're 1 talent. The lunatics have taken over the asylum type of thing. There's more of them than there are of us. They're disgruntled. That's why they're like, that whole deconstruction thing that we're talking about. There's a whole bunch of people doing that, and they are justified because of whatever their church experience is, right? So you have to remember, humans are going to project their reference. They're going to project whatever their life experience on you. You have to be lying, Alan, because they would lie. I'm a good Christian and God doesn't speak to me. I'm a good Christian and I can't heal the sick. I'm a good Christian and I don't see, visions, or I don't get prophetic words. So how can you, Allan? See what I'm saying? And this is only going to get worse.
And he's going to say they went out from us because they were not of us. Just like you said in the beginning.
Well, where's our proof text? Thousands followed him. Jesus knew their heart. They're only following me because I heal them and I feed them. They really have no interest in this because they're the same, not right? How do we know? One, they yelled, "Crucify him." The majority of people that said, "Hosanna, Hosanna, Son of David, King," on when he entered Jerusalem, 5 days later said, or 4 days later said, "Crucify him." And at the end of the day, there was only 72 in the upper room. The whole purpose for Israel's existence is to usher in Messiah for the rest of you, Gentiles. That's what Paul says. That's what Jesus said. I'm here for the lost sheep of Israel. Those are the 10 tribes. Well, that's a can of worms right there.
Big one. Oof.
And right, and that's their prime directive. And when the smoke clears, they kill their Messiah, and there's only 72 in the upper room. Where does that put us?
On our knees with the fear of the Lord and humility in our hearts. The comments have gotten quiet.
Well, I hope so. I hope they're self-examining.
I think so. You know what? There's no apology for everything that we've been talking about lately. A lot of people go, "Oh no, we need to hear some peace." Now the line's been crossed, and here we are, and people need to be told the truth. This is that needs fear. Because it's obvious what's happening. If people can't see that, oh my gosh.
Can you repeat that? Because you were frozen.
I just basically say it's so obvious now. And if people can't see that, it needs to be shouted from the rooftops. And the cry is, prepare ye the way of the Lord, for he's coming. That's part of that Elijah task, preparing a people for the coming of the Lord. And he's at it again. That's what the Spirit of God's doing. He is really calling it out. And it's interesting looking at some different scenarios and different groups of people that I've been aligned with in the past. There's splits everywhere right now. Some people are going, how come we're wandering away? Other people are saying, can we just tolerate this intrusion of progressiveness? And they're debating that. There should be no debate. Some people that I know and everything, just talking to them, just talking back at him. I said, what are you doing?
All right. So it's got to be confusing, right? If you're a born again Christian that doesn't believe in the Torah and doesn't believe in charismatica, I'm not quite sure what it is that, you believe that Jesus is Lord and you got, once, and you're probably once saved, always saved, and you receive Jesus into your heart. So now you're a Christian, now you're saved. And they want to live at peace. They're probably, I'm thinking people of that persuasion based on my experience, are also the type of people that they don't like confrontation. They've always towed the line. They went to school, they didn't cut, they didn't do drugs, they weren't very popular. They went to college, they maybe did something stupid, but they came out of that, they got married, they had families, they had careers. You know what I'm saying? They're just these real normal nominal people with real normal nominal faith. They're not pushing the envelope. They're not, missionaries to whatever. They're not charismatic. They're good. They're good people. They're good people. I'm a good person. They go to church, tithe, and maybe do a weekly service or something. Maybe, but it's not like. And they probably haven't done a very good job of raising their kids in the Lord. I'm just talking about Christianity that I've watched for 40 years. That's the majority. They really are the majority. They're not the exception to the rule. They are the rule. Well, I can see how inclusion and progressivism and how all of that stuff makes sense just to keep the peace and to be loving to their neighbor. So wear your mask, right? And they're the majority. And then you got people like us with earrings going, no, what about this? What about that? And they're like, I have been told by Christians that what I just defined could define them, but at least they consider, but not to that degree. They know that this crazy transgender and all that stuff isn't right, isn't good, but they don't believe. You know what I'm saying? But and I've been told, based on my position, what I believe and how I believe it, you're trying to keep me out of heaven. I don't have that type of power, dude. But what we believe and how we believe it lays this narrative that says, wait, you're saying that everything I do is wrong. You're saying that Christianity is broken, it's bad, and how I've done and how I do Christianity is wrong. Yeah.
Isn't there a name for that? It's called Laodicea. Remember what he said about that? He goes, "You're not hot or cold. You're like vomit in my mouth."
But I'm not saying. But I don't say what I say or believe what I believe to judge you. That's like the one talent guy accusing the 5 talent guy of doing what he did, what came naturally to him, obedience and doubling his minas to 10, to make the one guy look bad. No, dude, I wasn't even thinking of you. Right. I was just I'm just being faithful to my Lord. I don't believe what I believe to make you look bad, Mr. Christian. Mr. Christian? No. But I'm telling you what I'm telling you, right? This is that dinner I had 2 or 3 weeks ago where the guy's, all right, it's 9:30, time for you to go. Because what I believe makes them feel bad and judged. And I'm probably, and I'm not the most diplomatic person when it comes to sharing this stuff. I get excited. I'm excited. It's like, I want to save you. Your house is on fire. And instead they hear, you're telling me I'm not a Christian. I'm not saved and whatever.
There's that voice.
Yeah. And it's like, well, no, I'm telling you this because it's the truth. I understand you don't know this truth, but you've asked me what I believe. I'm telling you what I believe. You can't now cry foul. But I can understand how if you're a nominal Christian, and I know there's a lot of nominal Christians out there because that's just the majority. I know there's a lot of people out there that aren't punk rockers. See, that's the equivalent. Me saying there's nominal Christians out there is the same exact thing as me saying there's not a lot of punk rockers out there. Or there's a whole bunch of you weren't punk rockers. That's just truth. I'm not insulting you. I'm just telling you the truth. Now, if you liked certain bands, I'll make fun of you, but you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. I'm not insulting you by saying nominal Christian. I'm just saying you probably didn't like Rudimentary Peni or the Sex Pistols, right? That's just real life. Well, I know there's a lot of nominal Christians out there that are going to have a hard time grasping what it is we're talking about, because that then suggests that they've been doing it wrong all along, and now what? Or that they've been lied to, and now what? And that's why we go, hey, we don't just sit here and tell you that it's wrong. We give you the answer. Here's what you can do about that. Here's the now what. But if you don't have ears to hear, and you're functioning from a religious spirit, you're going to look at your watch and suggest it's time for me to go. Oh, that would have been a great ending right there. Bam.
I think the punk rock thing is a good analogy, because if you were talking to someone like that, say a musician, and then be like, oh man, I heard of Bad Brains, or I heard of Rudimentary Peni, but I never really, tell me more about that. Like, were they before Blink 182? Right? So there would like be this thing like, oh, there could be more.
Yeah.
But man, I bet if they heard that band, they'd be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So there's a moment that's, I think Lenny had to go. Bye, Lenny. I think there's a moment that piques the curiosity, and either go, no, I know everything there is to know already, I'm not open to that, or there's a curiosity. It's like, oh, tell me more. What is behind door number 3 that you just mentioned? Yeah. And I think that's tough when people, there's things that I'm setting my ways on, that if I hear something, it takes me a while to like chew on it or be like, okay, where do I go deeper? How do I find out more? God, reveal this to me, and I think the punk rock thing is a good analogy.
Somebody yesterday they posted something, Cretin Hop, 1977, the Ramones, Cretin Hop. If you don't know it, I'm sorry. But I'm like, when you know that Cretin Hop came out in 1977, yet you've got all these bands from Orange County in the Christian music world in 1981, 82, and 83 coming out and saying, yeah, we're punk rock, and it's like, it's ridiculous. And you have to be completely ridiculous to suggest that you were, or to suggest that they were, when you have Cretin Hop in 1977. It's like, there's no comparison. You know what I'm saying? And I guarantee you they weren't listening to Cretin Hop in 1977, 78. They just weren't. Because if you were, what you came out with in 82, 83 wouldn't have sounded like that. You know what I'm saying? It's called authenticity. And you don't have to understand my punk rock analogies, but you can understand this. It's called authenticity. Please don't try to con us regarding your faith profile. And please don't try to con yourself regarding your faith profile, because God is not mocked. You will reap what you sow. If you think you're all that in a bag of chips and your life doesn't have any fruit to back that up, I'm suggesting that you probably weren't a punk rocker. I'm suggesting you're probably not a punk rocker. I'm suggesting, just because you shop at Hot Topic doesn't mean, in the same way, just because I read the Bible every day, or I've read the whole Bible twice. I don't know why people use that as an example of their spirituality and their godliness and their Christendom, but they do. Yeah. See what I'm saying? A lot of people will tell me how Christian they are because they've read the whole Bible once or twice. It's kind of weird. That's not what God's talking about. In the same way he told Israel, I'm not interested in the blood of bulls and goats. I'm not interested in the blood of bulls and goats. I'm interested in your heart. I want a sacrifice of thanksgiving. I want your heart. I want to have a relationship with you. I want to dwell in you. I want to make my home in you. But if you want to keep it about blood of bulls and goats, if you want to keep me at arm's length, he's like, no, that's not what I'm about. I'm about your heart. I want to, that's authenticity. He wants to have covenant with you. He wants to walk in covenant with you. Islam believes that that Allah is not a father, and there is no son. They literally believe that. We believe that Father God is a father to us, and that there is a son. That's how we have access to the Father. So he wants to interact with us as a father. He wants to walk with us as a father. And he's a good father. He wants to give you bread, not stone. He wants to give you fish, not snake. He wants to lavish you as his treasure. These are words that he uses. There's this great word my daughter Shondell got, that she's like a ring on his finger, a priceless jewel ring on his finger. It's like, that's how he sees you. And he wants to have that type of relationship with you. But if you're standoffish and religious and, you don't want to have that type of covenant relationship, he understands that. He's God. He understands what happened at Sinai. And he understands that's but see, that's what makes you nominal, because he can't and he won't invade your space. If you set up a parameter if you set up a pen to pen God, he's not going to impose himself on you. He's a gentleman. The Holy Spirit's a gentleman. He wants to have that covenant relationship with you. And see, that's how you become his sheep. Right? That's how you have that personal relationship. And then he says what? What does he say? My sheep know my voice. That was another good place to end it.
Hearing God. There you go. Mic drop.
Oh man. All right. Next, we will be here next Tuesday, and we will be here next Monday. Scraped knees. Yeah. He wants to come running up and pick you up and put some of that, what was that spray? Neosporin spray or whatever? Or Bactine. Remember Bactine? God's got Bactine in his pocket, and he wants to spray it on your scraped knees. He's a good Abba. And you know what? His thoughts towards you are good thoughts, and they outnumber the stars in the sky and the grains of sand. You're his favorite one. I did it. That was a good one.
You're listening to Chameleon Church. Biblical Antidotes for the Modern Man. With your host, Allan Aguirre.
The views and opinions expressed during our broadcasts are solely those of the broadcast producers, hosts, and/or guests, etc., and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the Travelog Network, its sponsors, or affiliates.